Atheism and feminism are naturally complementary to one another. There is no human institution that has done so much in so many cultures across such a long period of time to hold women down as organized religion. Before I get too far into this, I want to make it clear that I will be using multiple senses of the word atheism throughout this video. This will be obvious to most of you from the context of what I'm saying, but bitter experience tells me that it will not be so obvious to a few of you. So before you post an angry comment presuming to inform me that atheism means not believing in gods and that's all it means, let me say that I agree with the first half of that statement, but also remind you that not everyone uses the term to mean that and only that. Atheism can also refer to the community of atheists or the body of work produced by that community. It's totally legitimate to notice trends within that community and to propose that something be done to change those trends that I find troubling. I'm not proposing that we redefine what atheism means, and I'm not suggesting that people who disagree with me about stuff are not authentic atheists. Given the fact that both atheists and advocates for the rights of women have historically been oppressed by organized religion, and also given the fact that modern atheism has largely rejected other regressive attitudes traditionally promoted by religious fundamentalism, like hostility to science and modern medicine, or overt prejudice against LGBT people, you might think that atheism and feminism would be the strongest of allies. And in the minds of many atheists and many feminists, they are. Thanks to the internet, I have a fairly large circle of friends and acquaintances who, like me, identify as both atheist and feminist, and find that the two fit together quite neatly. Unfortunately, there is also a faction within atheism that is aggressively hostile toward women in general and outspoken feminists in particular. This faction is most active here on YouTube. Within it are several of the most subscribed to atheist channels. These regularly feature videos attacking feminists, spreading misinformation about feminism, and attempting to undermine efforts to address problems of importance to feminists, such as sexual assault or the wage gap. Beyond that, their supporters eagerly join the effort. Occasionally, especially if the target is a woman, they'll even resort to doxing or threats of physical violence. The high-profile anti-feminist YouTubers don't directly instigate these actions of their followers, but they don't seem all that concerned with them either, despite these sorts of things being done in their names by self-professed fans of theirs all the time. There are two major results of this. First, feminists, especially women, either stop participating in the YouTube atheist community or decide not to start. And second, the atheist community as a whole is perceived by those outside of it as being a place where sexism and misogyny are not merely tolerated, but rewarded. It seems to me that both of these results are undesirable. One of the most damaging effects wrought on society by religion has been the subjugation of women. Many atheists are quick to speak out against the religious oppression of women today, whether it's found here in the West or in other parts of the world. But if we're going to cite the mistreatment of women as a point against religion, shouldn't we be vigilant about identifying and confronting the mistreatment of women in our own communities? Religious oppression of women can be easy to spot. Oppression of women in the YouTube atheist community is not nearly so formal. Nowhere is it codified that women should not be allowed to speak freely. But the hostility toward feminism, the petulant complaining in response to attempts to address sexism, and the outright withering abuse that greets women in this community all add up to send an unmistakable message. No humanist worthy of the label would tolerate women being mistreated in their community. Women being human, last I checked. Humanism and feminism don't stand in opposition to each other. And anyone who thinks they do has misunderstood at least one, and probably both, of those things. What about the role YouTube atheism's pronounced streak of misogyny plays in how atheism is perceived by non-atheists? Though the anti-feminist YouTubers aren't representative of the broader community, like most minority groups, atheists are often misrepresented. We need to make sure that the stereotype of an atheist as an angry, condescending male chauvinist is just that, a straw man that doesn't represent the general character of our community. And we don't do that by rounding up the anti-feminists and running them out of town on a rail, as I have occasionally been accused of advocating. The anti-feminists, the sexists, the misogynists do not speak for us. But if the amount of anti-feminist rhetoric, not to mention the exuberant applause that often greets that rhetoric, is keeping atheist women from having a stronger voice in our community, and it is, and if that rhetoric consists not merely of honest, informed disagreement, but straw-manning and demonizing of feminism of the sort that we would never tolerate were it directed at atheism, I've also lost count of how many times I've received indignant comments declaring that, though I call myself an atheist, feminism is my true religion. A religion, as any self-professing atheist worth a damn ought to know, is typically defined as a belief system based on divine revelations and dogmatic principles handed down from unquestionable authorities. Anyone who believes that something like a divine revelation is necessary to recognize the ongoing oppression of women, or that feminists are mindless followers of authority, needs to take his head out of his ass. Such a worldview is only possible if the perception of the person holding it is clouded by ignorance or warped by unconscious bias, two conditions that we who fancy ourselves skeptics strive to correct, do we not? Valuing the contributions of a wide variety of people with a wide variety of ideas. Women are not the only demographic to be marginalized and mistreated in our community, and particularly here on YouTube. People of color and LGBT folk, among others, struggle for equal time in atheist circles just as they do in other communities and in society in general. I've chosen to focus on the mistreatment of women because, in my opinion, that problem is the most obvious and the most tacitly condoned. Problems like the one I've spent this video discussing are not unique to YouTube atheism or to atheism as a social movement. The question we now face as atheists is, will we learn from the mistakes of the great social movements like feminism that came before us?